Ooh, shouldn't have that. Hello there. Good morning. Oh, wow. There was some silence in the beginning. I understand. Thank you for hanging on if you're listening still. This is Jim the Keys Bartender coming to you from a wacky weekend in the Keys. It's a cloudy, rainy day today, as there should be every so often in the Keys in order to replenish our freshwater system in and around South Florida. I hope you had a good weekend. I remember those things you say. Be a little cognizant when you go into a restaurant and say, Happy Friday to someone. Happy Friday. Well, sometimes Fridays are people's Mondays. And you're a reminder when you say something like that is of one of the horrible aspects of working in the industry. It's kind of like a reminder. We're off and you gotta work. Well, fuck you. No. It's like, how oblivious. It's like going to, I guess it would be similar to going to a wake and going up to give condolences or the condolence line to show your respect for the deceased, to the family, going up and go, hey, my baby's coming, or I'm getting married 2 months before you say anything about that. If you can't say anything, hey, good to see you. You're expecting a busy weekend. This is your meat and potatoes and stuff like that. Yeah, but people don't even think that because that's the way they act. You're saying like, I don't care. I'm having a good time. You're working. Fuck you. No. Hey, that's just one of my pet peeves and stuff like that. Even though I do enjoy my work. I enjoy my work more so than a lot of people enjoy off. And I enjoy my time off a lot more than they enjoy their time off. If you do that association, you know what I mean? If A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C, right? It's kind of like I think it could be Pythagoras, the Pythagorean theorem. Yeah, we're starting out. That's Monday Morning Live, and I'm rolling out the Pythagorean theorem. On that note, talking about great ideas, I just want to talk about some of life's big questions. And one of those big questions is, when is it appropriate to be really happy about something, and when is it appropriate to be sad? You don't have to be either. Sometimes you could just be content. How you doing today? Oh, I'm on vacation. It's so fucking great. Oh, you got to work. And I'm going to drink in front of your bar and enjoy them myself. Yeah, that's what we do. We know that. You don't have to remind us sometimes. You have to remind us on Friday that you have the whole weekend off and we're going to be working doubles and shit like that. I understand. And after a long double, a long day, let's say working 12, 13 hours, don't be surprised if the person on the other end doesn't want to get out of work and doesn't want to hang with you. You are probably thoroughly charming, but on a Saturday, after you've been drinking a couple hours, you might, just think that maybe there's a possibility that the person on their end, when I'm not talking about the wood in their pants, I'm talking about the wood at the bar that's behind the boards, might be interested in leaving and going someplace else. They don't have to go home, but they don't want to stay there. It's kind of a reverse thing. You ever hear that when the lights go out? When the lights go up at a bar and restaurant, hey, it's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Boy, it doesn't sound smooth with me doing it. But I'm ready to move on after that. That should be more like, well, I am happy to see people and stuff like that. That's where I get my material from. But don't be surprised when other people don't. They're going through a lot of stuff. It's a hard job. They don't, a lot of people don't put a lot of forethought into the planning to work in the service industry. It's all shits and giggles when you're in your 20s and everyone else is in their 20s. You got these hot young girls working with you, and they're in your age group, so you get to date them, or whatever, you go socialize with them, have fun with them, and they get to have fun with you. But after a couple of years, it could be a little tiring for some people. Or even after 1 year. People want to just go out and play with their friends and stuff like that. If that's what you like to do on the weekend, I highly, highly, highly discourage you from being in the service industry. Now, me, on the other hand, if I'm speaking about myself, since I no longer partake of the libations, such as alcohol, I don't feel I'm missing that much. Because I used to get in a lot of trouble and stuff like that, and in my personal life and things like that, when I had that extra time. So there's a lot of times it's worth it for me to be working and remind me. It's kind of like a reminder every so often when I see, and a rare occasion, that I'm not in trouble anymore, or I don't feel like shit the next day. That's because I abused it, and I'm done with that. I'm done with talking about that. Let's talk about another thing. Someone posed a question to me, and it was interesting. The question was, how many people do you know with a landline anymore? And it's funny, only recently, I'm going to work backwards. Only recently, the only thing left for landlines now, it was until the last couple of years, was if you were going to call 911, that as soon as you called 911 from a landline, they know where you're calling from. So they know where to go. Like, it's real hard to tell with a cell phone. You just go, 911, where are you? I'm 556. Just say it a couple times. It may be tough if someone's coming through your door with an axe. You have to calm down. You got to slow down when you're in an emergency sometimes. Sometimes you got to speed up. Sometimes you got to slow down, because that address phase of giving information to someone is very important on 911. But that's the biggest thing. That was the biggest thing that phone companies had left for the landlines, to say, hey, listen, you need it 911. You know what? There's a lot of scary things that happen. You need that 911. Security. We're going to talk about security too a little. That's funny about that. But years ago, when I was married to another woman, we had a discussion with our landline provider. And the prices were high for long distance and stuff like that. And there was no charge for long distance on cell phones. And we just go, wow, this is ridiculous, talking on a landline to call somebody out of state. It's best just to use, or out of state, out of area code, it's best just to use your cell phone. And I guess it uncovered the fallacy of how difficult it is to make a long distance phone call and how much the services are provided for. It just was a gimmick. Obviously, it's a business, but they charge an inordinate amount of money for long distance phone calls. They used to have to purchase plans, long distance, because it was so expensive. My sister, when I was in high school, my sister, who was at the time a junior or senior in high school, we had lived in Philly with her father, and we were visiting our mother. They were divorced, in Tampa, Florida. And we would visit for four weeks a month in the summertime. And she was calling her boyfriend, and this is back in 1980, 1979. She ran up a $500 phone bill, which would be similar to running a $2,500 to $3,000 bill nowadays. Yeah, calling from Florida to Philly. So who has a landline now? There's people, if you don't have a cell phone, you don't go out, you don't need a cell phone. Landline makes sense. You probably can get it. I don't know. I have no idea what a landline costs now. And I know long distance can't be that much, because anybody that would run out, $20 to $30 in long distance, why in the hell would you call on a landline? Just get it. That would be this, You wouldn't have to pay any long distance anymore, right? So at one point we had a dispute with our carrier, and we're just saying, hey, listen, is there a way to get it cheaper and all this? Nope, there's no other way. This is all their response. Their response was, we're your landline provider. This is what it costs, and this is what you're going to pay. There's no other plan for you. And my wife at the time said, well, that can't be good because, I could just drop the landline. And they said, on the other end, they said, what are you going to do? Use your cell phone? Well, fuck yeah, that's what happened. And that's what's happening now. It's interesting because right now, all the phone lines, let's guess, 80 to 90% of the information, I'm seeing a majority of information travels over phone lines are less than voice. Because phone lines nowadays, it's information, it's streaming and all this stuff, optic fiber cables for internet. And so most of the voice traffic is either through the internet or through the cell towers. Probably most of it's through cell towers, and then you got voice over internet. So that became true. So it's funny. I mean, imagine that's always the case for people when they're going, like, they don't see the writing on the wall. It's like, fuck, I hate going to gas stations and stuff like that. They jump, the prices go up, blah, 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 blah. I wish I didn't have to do that. Well, get yourself an electric car. Just plug it in at the end of the day or go, and charge it at some of the quick charging stations, which is technically the gas station of today. So, and people say, well, yeah, you can't go to a gas station. Where are you going to go? You're going to purchase your own gas? No, I'll just drive electric, Or someone is going to say, well, you're going to use a lot of electricity and all that. And then they said, well, I'll do a solar and wind power and stuff like that. And I'll charge my car at home. I never go more than 100 miles from my house. So that becomes true. All these things. People say, well, there's an epidemic. How am I going to work? Well, I'm going to work from home because a lot of my work that can be done is through teleconferencing and things like that. I can meet clients that way, and I can meet them better online, right? Matter of fact, this week, tomorrow, I have to go to Marathon. Oh, I wonder if I might, maybe she has to sign something or something like that. So, I'm sorry. I have to go to Marathon to meet with a financial advisor for my daughter's college fund. And I just realized we didn't have to meet. We don't have to go all the way to Marathon. Marathon's 50, 60, about 50 miles away. Why did I say 50, 60? It stays static but it's about a little over 50 miles. And my wife wants me to go because she's busy that day, and it's mainly her. So I have to handle the meeting myself, which we could have done online. I never understand why people do it in person while we'd have to drive away. Probably because that person's not familiar with Zoom meeting and things like that. But Zoom meeting, that's the thing. Zoom and Skype and FaceTime. All these things have changed the nature of work. So people say, listen, I can hire some guy. I need a purchasing agent in the United States to buy all the things from American suppliers that knows the ins and outs, the shipment dates and stuff like that from the States. But I don't want to bring them to Germany. That's where the company is. So I'll hire them remotely and have that person in the United States do that and deal with all the suppliers and things like that are purchasing supplies for our company. Isn't that nice? Yeah, it's a lot easier to do. There's all sorts of things. And people always laugh at that. I'm sure they did it historically. Just like if the first actor on vaudeville or the stage said, well, I'm in the early 1900s, said, well, I'm going to leave vaudeville. I'm going to still act. What are you going to do? Well, I'm going to go into motion pictures. Motion pictures? Are you kidding me? That's not going to happen. There's no sound. Why the hell would you want to be in motion pictures? You're a singer, and probably like after the 1920s, you started getting the late 1920s, you started getting sound and stuff like that, and you showed them. So there's always a new technology coming out. I really never understood how people make such a big fucking deal about that. I want to say hello to my friends in Tennessee. What was one of the questions? I have a question from one of our listeners and one of our regular listeners. Oh, let's stop this. Oh, God, I keep on bringing this up. Let's see. What the question was? Sean. Interesting how your show with your buddy Joe talk about the Everglades. By the way, I can't believe Lorne Michaels never made a Californians movie. Yeah, you're right, Sean. Last week we were talking to Papa Joe, and we were talking about driving up Alligator Alley. That's the nickname of it, called Alligator Alley, because you can see a lot of alligators in the canals running alongside the road. It's a small road. It's not like a highway. It's a highway, but it's not like a highway. I mean, it's not raised and all that stuff. You can see it. So, I mean, if you're the driver, you should be paying attention to the road. But if you're in the passenger seat, it's great. You can stare all you want into the canal and see alligators sunning themselves and stuff like that, especially during the hot weather. But while we were talking about it, we were talking about different ways to get to Englewood, Florida. And, oh, man, I remembered something right at the top of my head. So what happened, we were doing directions. Kind of reminded me of Saturday Night Live, the Californians. In California, when you're in the LA area, everyone has a way of getting someplace. But that's every place. It's different down here in the southern end of this continent, because there's only really one direction to go. We don't have like multiple ways. If you're going to say you're going to Key West, there's 3 ways you can go: by air, by boat, or by Route 1. That's it. I think I covered it. Yeah, by air, by boat, by Route 1. That's it. But air and boat's any place in the United States that's on the coast, right, with the boat. And air any place in the United States. So when you're heading north, that's the thing. When you're going to Orlando and things like that, as you go further north, you get more options. Now, if I'm going to Philadelphia, it's almost all Florida Turnpike and I-95. That's it. But if you're going someplace like Kendall, and that's in Miami, yeah, there's multiple routes you could take. And Saturday Night Live had a bit where set up as a soap opera called Californians. They were all bleach blonde, and they had the innocuous, stereotypical California accent, which is not necessarily the case. I spoke to people from California. They don't sound like that at all. But they're parodied on Saturday Night Live that way. And they're always giving alternate directions on how they got there. Well, how'd that happen? Well, I got on Van Nuys Boulevard, did this, blah, 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 blah. So, but Lorne Michaels seems to always make a movie about one of their bits. Like they made one about Pat. They made one about Rosemary, the superstar, the Catholic school girl. They made one, the Roxbury guys, the Will Ferrell and his buddy in the disco. And Lorne Michaels really beats a dead horse with some of these movies. And Californians would have been one of them. A whole movie, I can't imagine how that would have been. That all these hour and 10 minutes, or what's the shortest you could make them? An hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes, and released for straight to, it's not video, straight to streaming, I guess they call it nowadays. You can't call it straight to video, right? Because who the fuck makes a video anymore? There's probably someone in their basement videotaping making a videotape of a 90-Day Fiancé right now as we speak. But that's more of a exception rather than a rule. So I'd like to thank you for listening and giving that. And we also have another friend of the show, Dave, nicknamed Ace, who listens to the show regularly. Ace is not a natural to technology, but he seems to really get it. For a guy in my age demographic, he seems to be able to make the leap to understand. Because from a group of friends of ours from New York, we have Greg and Steve. And they always refer to the show as a blog. You're still doing your blog? And they say, can we be on your blog? And I go, yeah, you can. But if you were on the blog, what I would be doing would be writing what you're saying. Because a blog is more of a literary device. And a podcast is an audio experience. And a vlog is kind of like a video blog. Do we get that now? We had all that exchanges. And Dave asked, is there a way for him to talk to us? And there is a way. But yeah, I think you have to be on. Let me see if I can invite my friends with Facebook. Invite with Facebook. See if it works. See if anybody wants to talk to us on this show. I'm streaming live. Let's see how this works. If anybody's listening on Spreaker, not too many people listen on Spreaker. They listen on iTunes. A majority of them. Chat. Child with us live. Chat with Jim. I'll just be chat live. That's kind of sad that no one's going to be. But I don't advertise when the show's going to be. Okay. I just put it out there. Chat live. I'll leave that chat if anybody. Okay, I'll put this here. Chat live. Open. And that's on, I guess if you can go from chat line open. Chat line open. That's what I'll put there and see if that works. Who knows? He's Bartender. So, I was reading the news this past weekend, and what caught my eye may caught a lot of your eyes. I'm sure the kind of listeners you are, I don't mean you're admirable people, some fine qualities. But if you listen to this show, you probably were attracted to this story. You know how on TV, they're always searching for the next show, the next thing. I mean, geez, I noticed that several years ago. My God, 20 years ago when they were running it. They had a Fear Factor with Joe Rogan, where people would eat insects and pig anus and duck vagina and whatever. And do it when they're suspended on a zip line between two buildings. And you win money. And then you have all these other reality shows, Survivor, Biggest Loser, this and that. And then they were thinking, well, what else can we do? And the Hollywood Game Night. I know I skipped over a bunch of other iterations of weird shows. You know, Live Monopoly or Twister, non-sexual Twister. Because Twister, God. I mean, if Twister, maybe we'll get on another show, but Twister, it's kind of like fully clothed orgy. That's what Twister is. So it's funny. And it's funny that came out I think that came out in the 60s. I wouldn't say, yeah, Twister. Maybe early 70s. Who knows? But where were we? They were coming in different shows. So you had Hollywood Game Night, where you get celebrities coming in, they're drinking. Yeah, you get them all drunk, and they're doing pantomime and charades, and whatever would you do on a Pictionary kind of stuff, word association. And now, so they're going all the way down. They have all these different things, and then all of a sudden, NBC decides, extreme slip and slide. Extreme slip and slide. Yeah, they were going to do a whole show. I don't know how it was going to work. It's probably they got on the side of a mountain. They got a big piece of plastic, ran some water down to it. Because, they did it over 20 years ago. I mean, when did YouTube come out? But whenever YouTube came out, then people started doing things on YouTube, getting long sheets of tarp and sliding down the side of a mountain or a hill. Well, they did this. They were doing a show, Extreme Slip and Slide, and 40 people on the cast and crew came up with, let me say that, I'm doing this from memory, Giardia, Gardia, a kind of, whatever illness it is, it causes explosive diarrhea. And I have a problem with the term explosive diarrhea. Almost all diarrhea is explosive diarrhea. I mean, it's kind of redundant, isn't it? When you shoot firing, you're firing is like having a fire hose squirting out your rectum. So to call it explosive, unless there's like a low volume, low pressure one. I mean, I think all of it is. I'm sorry if you're eating breakfast right now. But that's the nature of the whole article. The NBC was going to do an extreme slip and slide. We're going to have people going, I don't know how they were going to stretch that into a half hour, let alone an hour show. We're going to have commentary. You're going to have people going down. Yeah, at the end of it, you can have a little jump and end up in a pool. That's probably some of the best thing. I'd be up for that. I wouldn't be up. I mean, I could watch a video of it maybe for 4 minutes, but throw in some commercials and stuff like that. Wow, the power of me to lose interest is immense, and I would lose interest in that right away. Unless something like explosive diarrhea. But when you have water, it's so funny because my wife and daughter are going to Poland this week on Thursday. And today, the daughter wanted to go up to West Palm Beach, that area. I think that's where it was, or Fort Lauderdale, where there's a water park. Now, we always kind of knew when there was water parks that you were pretty much slipping into a petri dish. But there wasn't, I guess, the crush of stories over the amount of time that water parks were open. Within 10 years, 15 years, that's when the stories piled up about E. coli infections and all the chlorine they use in it, blah, 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 blah. I used to go down the Jersey Shore, and they used to have a couple of those at in Wildwood, where they have the big-ass lazy river, which is just a thing that goes around the water park, and you sit around and float, and then you got the water slides and all this stuff going on. I was going to say all this shit because, yes, not everyone, if you're thinking about some of the size of these parks, where thousands of people are in there at a time in the water. And how many millions of gallons there are, okay. But then you got thousands of people. How many people are having accidents? And you see these little kids. And little kids have, adults barely have control on it. Especially when they're doing something extreme, their bodies kind of react sometimes. So there's all sorts of, when you have this filtered, recirculated water and all this stuff, these bodies in and just floating in there creating. The next, I swear to God, the next Ebola thing, if there's any more water parks that extend in the developing world, the thing that's going to kill humanity will be something that's in a water park. Or it could be in a foam party. Who knows? It could be one of those foam dancing parties in places like Ibiza or Cancun. You like how I was able to say it? I had a problem saying orbital. I'm not having a problem right now for some reason, but I don't have a problem saying Ibiza. It looks like Ibiza when you spell it. So it's an island in the Mediterranean where people party and there's a lot of phone parties and stuff like that. There used to be, I guess. Maybe they don't have them anymore. Be kind of restrictive right now. So when I saw a news article that said NBC, I'm getting back to the original thing we were talking, extreme slip and slide and explosive diarrhea, I thought, of course. Of course. It's like saying, it's going to be horrible to say this, but saying, 30-year-old male gymnast coach accused of, sexual harassment. Of course. Of course. Just one of those things. I'm not shocked at it. Man shot at firing range that also has a bar. When I talk a bar, cocktail lounge. Of course that's going to happen. Or sex shop worker catches STD when they do a dildo exchange. Of course that's going to happen. Of course, why wouldn't it happen? Or, since we're on the diarrhea thing, a diarrhea, what would you call that? Outbreak at Indian restaurant. Of course. And I'm not saying Indian restaurants aren't clean and stuff like that. It's just people aren't used to the spices in Indian food. I'm not insulting you, my Indian listeners. I'm saying sometimes your food could be a little spicy. Or Mexican restaurant. Or Italian restaurant. Or, an Irish restaurant. I mean, there's not as many Irish. It's one of these things. You don't see too many Irish-themed restaurants. If there's an Irish-themed restaurant, the bar is more than 50% of that restaurant. There's only so much potato soup you could sell. I mean, is that stereotypical? It sounds stereotypical, but that's the truth. There was one Irish restaurant outside of Towson, Maryland. And I think it's in Timonium, Maryland, on York Road. I think it was called Aubon Still. And not like A-U. I think it could have been like A-U, but that's like a French word. But Aubon Still was the name of it. It's a Gaelic word. Gaelic phrase, I guess it would be. So you don't see a lot. I mean, they had Bannigan's. Bannigan was an Irish-themed one. But you don't think, hey, let's go to an Irish restaurant. The only time people think of Irish food is St. Patrick's Day. And the only food that there's out there, the only food, the biggest is ham and cabbage. Ham and cabbage. Those are two most innocuous foods. Or corned beef and cabbage. Corned beef and cabbage, actually. There you go. Of all the treated, of all the foods, right there, you got corned beef and cabbage. There was one restaurant in Philadelphia called Binny and Flynn's. Binny and Flynn's. It was a hybrid Mexican and Irish restaurant. And I think they may have had potato soup and potato skins. That was the contribution in the bar area. But then again, at Binny and Flynn's, they used to make these they used to have these big ass margaritas. And you just had a nice selection of tequila. And the other Irish, they had a 23 ounce, I think a 23 ounce glass. When you're going to order a Bud Light, you get a 23 ounce Bud Light. There's nothing like slamming 4 or 5 of those Bud Lights and eating some tacos. Or nachos. Supreme nachos at Binny and Flynn's. There's no more. It was, a hybrid Mexican and Irish restaurant. How could you lose? Well, there you go. It didn't make it. I guess that Binny and Flynn's idea turned into TGI Fridays. So, I'm going to wind that up. We've wound it up with the explosive diarrhea and all that stuff. Speaking of that, there seems to be some kind of flu going around down here. And there's some people I know not in my immediate family. They have that malady I was talking about on the slip and slide. I'm not going to mention it again for the rest of the show, but they also regurgitated from the other way, from the mouth, and headaches and body aches. So if there's anybody, is there anybody chat with me? No. Okay. Oh, that's from I was just doing a chat line. I guess, Jim, if you don't advertise it's going to live show, there's not going to be anybody listening live. They're going to listen to it recorded. Well, that's just the way I do it. Maybe I should line it up. Send me a message. Anybody who's listening, if I would do my live show, let's say, for the next couple of weeks while the girls are away, I could set it to a certain amount of time, which is the best time for you to listen. You can send your responses to jim@keysbartender.com. Like us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Remember, if you're in Key Largo, check us. Come into the Catch Restaurant on mile marker 102 for we have seafood, we have non-seafood dishes. You have your own catch. You can bring your catch in, and they'll cook it for you. Also, we have happy hour Monday through Friday through 6:30. If you do come to the Catch and you're a listener, obviously if you're listening and you come to the Catch and stuff like that, tell them the Keys Bartender sent you. Tell them loud and proud. And I think I pissed off all the people that were assholes. Speaking of that, there's just an inordinate amount of people acting up on planes nowadays. They said it was an explosion, almost like a diarrhea explosion of bad behavior on planes. I always thought it was a tense situation when you went on a plane. So whenever I dealt with someone, when I had a disagreement, when I was in the air, I kind of toned it down more so than I do on the ground. And I'm pretty good on the ground. So I tone it down even more. Like if I have a problem with someone, someone's kicking a chair or some asshole drops their seat back real quick. When their seats are supposed to be upright and it's on my knees and stuff like that. They don't ask. They just do it. It's kind of a passive aggressive thing. It's like, fuck it. I'm just going to put my seat back. I don't care if that guy's, it's so, that's just the way people, it's all everybody for themselves when they're up in a plane sometimes. It's almost like a lifeboat, unless you're in the first class, obviously. And we're not making that kind of money yet to go first class, but I don't know if I've been in first class more than a few times. Well, 6 is more than a few times. 6 times I've been in first class. And I didn't always appreciate being in first class. I'm empathetic. And there's something missing from first class. Every so often, people do talk to each other in first class. I've only been there 6 times. I'm sure there's people that go there. Oh, I talk to people all the time because I see the same people in first class when I'm flying from blah, blah, blah. And okay, fuck you. But what I'm saying, there's a camaraderie of misery on long flights, on shitty planes, in economy class. Now, not necessarily for some of the premium flyers. I really enjoy flying on Lufthansa. I always thought Lufthansa economy was like business class on any of our domestic carriers here in the United States. I've been on Lufthansa, and I'd had part of it is because one of the routes I was taking, I'd get like 3 seats to myself. Well, I'd have 1 seat, and there'd be 2 empty seats, which is, man, that's fucking great. And you'd really find if it's crowded and there's like 2 people miss their flight and you're right in that row, then you see other people looking at you and they're going, oh boy, look at this guy. He's got 2 seats. He lucked into it and stuff like that. And every so often you have a person going, can I sit over here with you? And you're thinking, what are you going to do? Are you going to be one of those fucking people that trim their toenails or take their shoes off? But the nice thing about it with that, if you can do it, if you're ever in this situation, I just learned this the easy way, is that, and I've had it once. When a person started annoying you, you can always call the flight attendant saying, this person doesn't sit here. their ticket isn't for here. And they're annoying me. That's an extreme situation. Like I said, people have been acting up on planes and stuff like that. I don't know why. Just put your fucking mask on. Listen to you're all in this together. It's not about you. You don't need to make a political statement when you're on the plane. Because it's not one of those things to make a political statement. It's a transportation thing. A lot of people have important things to do. Some people are there on business. Some people are there for happy occasions or sad occasions. Some people are traveling to weddings. Some are traveling to funerals. Some are traveling for vacation. Most don't give a fuck about your views on mask. Just follow the rules. The flight attendants, they're just trying to maintain order. It's a fucking metal tube, 30,000 feet in the air, traveling in excess of a little less than 600 miles an hour. You better listen to them, because you don't know what's fucking going on. And you know what people are doing now? They're tired of your bullshit. And I'm not saying you probably don't listen to this. But if you start bullshit, not only do you have to deal with the flight crew, you have to deal with irate passengers who are tired of this shit. They're starting to see it. You see the stories now? Crew and passengers subdue unruly passengers. So I don't care. I don't care how big and fucking tough you are. If there's 30 people in a crowded plane that don't want you to do something, they will, just a mass of people will do that. I mean, they kind of pretty much screwed over the kind of hijacking that occurred during 9/11, because people are starting to learn maybe that's a good thing. On the flip side, the bad behavior of these passengers teaching people how to fight back. Okay, well, then my daughter's up, and our dog got released. Someone have to walk her. I'd like to thank you for listening. This is Jim the Keys Bartender. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.